मुख देखो भाई। मुख तो मुख देखिए बंद करो। ओके जी।
So good afternoon, everyone. This side Sanjay Suman from ICMI Social Order Organization. So welcome to our program ESG and Investment Decision Making. And today's speaker is Ms. Sangeeta Basu Halvi. She is founder, Quantum Analytical, and board member of Acumen Global. and Head of Management and Consultancy of F&Y Auditor and Qatar. So I'm welcoming to Ms. Sangeeta Basu ma'am for this program. Welcome ma'am and good afternoon.
Lot of sounds are coming.
Are you there ma'am? So we can start ma'am. We have already introduced to you.
Hello.
Yes ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, audible, you audible. I'm audible to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay, thank you for the confirmation. Ma'am, please, we can start. We can start, ma'am. Ma'am, we can start the program.
Okay, let's start it. Good afternoon, professional friends and my
Good afternoon, ma'am.
professional colleagues. Welcome to the session on ESG and investment decision making. Today we are going to discuss what is ESG investing and what are the different components of E, S, and G. We will discuss here the type of responsible investment, key players in the ESG investment market, what are the key drivers for integrating ESG into decision making, benefits and challenges of integrating ESG into financial analysis and decision making processes, and last but not the least, the key international initiatives to develop ESG market. So I will close the video for the timing in order so that the deck can go smoothly. Before I start the webinar, I would like to thank Dr. Gupta for giving me such a wonderful platform to share few of my thought process in ESG investing. I would also like to thank Acumen Global for giving me all the facilities and infrastructure. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Mr. Mukunda Hande, who assisted me in creating today's webinar deck. So let's start the process. Well, we are already, many of us are familiar with ESG. Well, there was a time when environmental, social, and governance issues were the niche concern of a select group of ethical or socially responsible investors. That time is long gone. The consideration of ESG factors is becoming an integral part of investment management. Both asset owners and investment managers are developing ways to incorporate ESG criteria into investment analysis and decision-making processes. The emergence of responsible investment proponents, such as United Nations Principle for Responsible Investment, has encouraged a fundamental change in investment practices whereby investors explicitly employ ESG factor analysis to enhance returns and also to get better management performance or better management of risks. Now the question is, what is this ESG investing and why it has become so important? So let us go to the next slide. 1 second. Yes. Question will come, what is this ESG investing and why it has become so important? Well, ESG investing is an approach to managing assets whereby investors explicitly incorporate environmental, social, and governance factors into their investment decisions with the long-term return of an investment portfolio in mind. In other words, ESG investing aims to correctly identify, evaluate, and price social, environmental, and economic risks and opportunities. There is currently no universal standard for assigning E, S, and G issues, and they may overlap with one another. The assignment of these issues depends on the specific properties of investors, businesses, and their stakeholders. Now, as an investment analyst, how or where I will start my analysis in order to identify companies which I can include in my ESG portfolio fund or ESG investment target. So far as the environmental segment is concerned, an analyst can look at the kind of energy or fuels used by the target company, whether they are using conventional energy or whether they are using renewable energy sources and what are the percentage of it. If an analyst is analyzing an emitting company, for example, oil and gas company, the first thing they will analyze what is the GHG emissions or CO2 emissions of that company and what action the company is taking to reduce the GHG emission. The analyst will also look at whether the company is energy efficient. Are they really taking climate risk seriously? If the company is heavily dependent on water resources, are they managing water resource sustainably? When it comes to social segment, the analyst can look at what kind of health and safety standards or policy the company has, whether they are giving enough training to their employees and enough awareness program for health and safety, What kind of working conditions the company is giving to their employees? Are employees' benefits are sufficient, especially whether the company is giving appropriate leaving allowance? Does the company follow diversity and inclusion policy or equal opportunity policy for all its employees? Whether the company promote human rights as per the recommendation of International Labour Organization, and what impact the company is creating to its local environment or to the local stakeholders. So far as the governance segment is concerned, the analyst will look at or drill down whether the company has appropriate ethical standards or corporate ethics policy, whether the board is diversified and have good representation of non-executive directors, whether the company has a policy for stakeholders engagement, whether shareholders' rights are promoted. So these are the factors an investment analyst should look at. Always keep in mind that if the governance is not strong, E and S factor will never work. And according to me, E plus S is equal to G square. Now we will talk about ESG and responsible investments. Now the question is, what is this responsible investment? Well, ESG investing is a part of a group of approaches collectively referred to as responsible investment. ESG investing is concerned with how ESG issues can impact the long-term return of assets and securities, whereas other responsible approaches can also take into account non-financial value creation and reflect stakeholder values in an investment strategy. So responsible investment is actually an umbrella term for the various ways in which investors can consider ESG factors within their security selection and portfolio construction. As such, it may combine financial and non-financial outcomes and complement traditional financial analysis and portfolio construction techniques. Now we will discuss some of the approaches of ESG investing. The first is socially responsible investment. Well, what is this socially responsible investment? It refers to approaches that apply social and environmental criteria in evaluating companies. Investors implementing SRI generally score companies using a chosen set of criteria, usually in conjunction with sector-specific weighings. A hurdle rate is established for qualification within the investment universe based either on the full universe or sector by sector. Another approach of responsible investment is best-in-class investment. Best-in-class investment is also known as positive screening. It involves selecting only the companies that overcome a defined ranking hurdle, which is established using ESG criteria within each sector or industry. Typically, here companies are scored on a variety of factors that are weighted according to the sector. The portfolio is then assembled from the list of qualified companies. The third category of responsible investment is social investment. Well, social investment refers to allocating capital to assets that address social challenges. This can be products that address the bottom of the pyramid. So now you will ask, what is this bottom of the pyramid? Well, bottom of the pyramid refers to the poorest 2/3 of the economic human pyramid, a group of more than 4 billion people living in poverty. More broadly, BOP refers to a market-based model of economic development that seeks to simultaneously alleviate poverty while providing growth and profits for businesses serving these communities. Let me give you some of the examples of social investments. For example, microfinance and microinsurance, access to basic telecommunications, access to improved nutrition and healthcare, and access to clean energy. In the next slide, we will talk about an index. This index is actually built by MSCI, and the index is called MSCI World SRI. This index is constructed by SRI by taking into consideration socially responsible investment and best-in-class investment approach. There are around more than 4,000 indexes or indices now available in the market, which is purely related to ES and G issues. In UAE also, we have an ESG index, which is called the Standard & Poor or S&P Hawkama ESG UAE Index. So it shows that the ESG investment market is really growing. Now we will talk about other responsible investments approaches or investment techniques. One very important investment approach which comes under the responsible investment is impact investment. Impact investing refers to investment made with the specific intent of generating positive, measurable, social or environmental impact alongside a financial return. It is a relatively smaller segment of the broader responsible investing market. Impact investing is usually associated with direct investments such as in private debt, private equity, and real estate. However, in recent years, impact investing has increasingly become mainstream in the public markets. An example is investing in products or services that help achieve one or more of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals launched by the United Nations in 2015, such as SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation, SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. There are other two categories of responsible investment. One is thematic investment. So what is this thematic investment? Well, thematic investment is investment in themes or assets specifically related to ESG factors such as clean energy, green technology, sustainable agriculture, gender diversity, or affordable housing. This approach is often based on needs arising from economic or social trends. Another category of responsible investment, although this is not the exhaustive list, well, that investment which is popularly known as climate investment or green investment. So what is this green investment? Green investment refers to allocating capital to assets that mitigate climate change, biodiversity loss, resource inefficiency, and other environmental challenges. For example, this can include low carbon power generation and vehicles project, smart grids project, energy efficiency processes and products, pollution control projects, so on and so forth. So far, we have discussed what is ESG, what are the different types of responsible investments, and also we just touched about ESG indexes. Now the question will come, in the ESG market, who are the key players? You can see here the main players in the ESG investment markets are asset owners. Who are these asset owners? They are pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance companies, and institutional investors. Although retail investors are there in the market, but their presence is far lesser than institutional investors. I will like to add few words about insurance companies. Insurance companies are most vulnerable to ESG risk, especially environmental risk, because both sides of the insurance companies' balance sheets are affected by climate change or severe environment. For example, the asset side of the balance sheet of insurance companies get affected by physical risk, and the liability side is affected by climate change risk or severe weather risk. Another category of players in the market who really makes this market are asset managers. Other than that, rating agencies are already there. As I have said, that there are more than 4,000 ratings are there in the market, which are exclusively catered to ESG. Other than that, bankers are now becoming a bigger player in the ESG investment market. And also, regulators are there. They are bringing new regulations to implement ESG in their countries. And of course, society and people like us who would like to invest in those companies who really practice sustainable investment or sustainable framework. So now we will talk about what are the key drivers for the growth of the ESG market. Before I go further, I will talk about a short story about myself. Well, almost 2 years back, I was working that time at Baker Tilly. There was a partners meeting where all the partners were discussing that they must implement or they must introduce some new services in the market. And few of the partners were talking about that why can't we start ESG advisory services or ESG reporting services, because the market is really picking up, especially in the Middle East, especially in the reporting segment. And few of the partners were telling that ESG has really become mainstream. When they were discussing about ESG, I was thinking, what is this ESG? I was Googling. That time I had no idea what is this ESG and how our services can benefit a company. I asked my partner very bluntly, if we introduce these services, what are the benefits our clients will get? He answered, please take my word, ESG is going to be the next thing. My next 2 slides, we will see that how ESG is going to be the next thing. This diagram is taken from the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report 2022. If you look at the diagram, where is our classical financial risk? All the risk what you are seeing here are all related to E, S, and G. For example, climate action failure, which has taken #1 position, is definitely going to affect everyone, not just now, also for our future generation. If you go through all this risk ranking, you can see all these risks are related to E, S, and G. Let me clarify this in my next slide. This is also taken from the report of World Economic Forum. Look at in the diagram, look at the likelihood and impact of various kind of risk. You can see here, in terms of likelihood and in terms of impact, extreme weather event has the highest or most vulnerable risk. Similarly, failure to climate change mitigation and adaptation. This is also going to be a very big risk for us in near future, followed by natural disasters. So where is our classical financial risk? You can hardly see here the classical financial risk. All risks are related to E and S factors. And that shows that ESG is going to be the next thing. Another key drivers for ESG, why we should include ESG in our decision-making process is economic perspective. Well, for implementing ESG stem from the recognition that negative megatrends will over time create a drag on economic prosperity as basic inputs. For example, water, energy, and land become increasingly scarce and expensive, and that the prevalence of health and income inequalities increase instability both within countries and between the global north and south. There is an understanding that unless these trends are reversed, economies will be weakened, exposed to sustainability-led bubbles and spikes. You can see a donut kind of diagram here in this deck. This diagram is taken from the Stockholm Resilience Center. They have identified 9 planetary boundaries within which humanity can continue to develop and thrive for generations to come. And in 2015, it found that 4 of them, climate change, loss of biosphere integrity, land system change, and altered geochemical cycles, already have crossed the limit. 2 of these, mainly climate change and biosphere integrity, are deemed as core boundaries for which significant alterations would drive the Earth system into a new state. So you can imagine how our action could bring future devastation for our future generation, especially the climate change and land system change and biosphere integrity. Another reason for integrating ESG into investment decision process is the regulatory perspectives. Regulators are keep on increasing new regulations to bring the countries into a proper way so that they can handle ESG issues seriously. You can see in 1990, there were hardly any regulations earmarked for ESG. Maybe there were some environmental laws and regulations. But in 2020, there were 868 regulations, especially related to ESG. If we divide these regulations on continent basis, you can see Europe has the highest number of regulations, almost 525, followed by Asia with 149 environment-related regulations. In South America, there is 46, followed by North America, 41. Now we have discussed that what is ESG, what is responsible investment, why we should integrate ESG into decision making. Now the question will come, what benefits we are going to get by integrating ESG into our decision making? Well, one of the main reasons for ESG integration is recognizing that ESG investing can reduce risk and enhance returns because it considers additional risks and injects new and forward-looking insights into the investment process. ESG integration may therefore lead to reduced costs and increased efficiency, reduce risk of fines and state interventions, reduce negative externalities, and improve ability to benefit from sustainable megatrends. Sustainable business practices build efficiencies by conserving resources, reducing costs, and enhancing productivity. Well, sustainability was once perceived by businesses and investors as requiring sacrifices. But the perception today is very different. Significant cost reductions can result from improving operational efficiency through better management of natural resources such as water, energy, as well as from minimizing waste. A strong ESG proposition can also help companies attract and retain quality employees and enhance employee motivation and productivity overall. Now I will discuss about some success stories of few international companies or brands who have successfully implemented ESG into their operational practices. The first and foremost is the Dow Chemical Company. Between 1994 and 2010, the Dow Chemical Company invested nearly $2 billion in improving resource efficiency and saved $9.8 billion from reduced energy and wastewater consumption in manufacturing. The similar success story goes with General Electric as well. In 2013, General Electric reduced its GHG emissions by 32% and water use by 45% compared to its 2004 and 6 benchmark. This resulted in savings of $300 million. The success story of Walmart is no less. Within 10 years, Walmart improved the fuel efficiency of its fleet by approximately 87% through better routing, cargo loading, and driver training. In 2014 alone, these improvements resulted in avoiding 15,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions and savings of nearly $11 million. So far, we have discussed why we should integrate ESG, what are the key benefits, and few success stories of some international brands. Now the question is how I'm going to integrate this ESG into decision making and what are the key challenges we as an analyst or professionals going to face. I will discuss few of the challenges. Well, the first challenge of integrating ESG is data availability. Although ESG data from investees are increasingly available from specialized providers, disclosure is still a significant challenge, especially in asset classes other than listed equities. Investment analysis thus remains limited by only corporate disclosure, which varies in quality and scope. It is also limited by investors' understanding of those data and which metrics they should take in the analysis process. The second biggest challenge comes to the analyst is how to develop the financial model by integrating ESG. Of course, it can be challenging to integrate ESG factors into traditional financial models because they do not always have a short-term financial impact. Furthermore, most financial analysts' models extrapolate from his historical data, which may be less relevant for forecasting future ESG-related outcomes. For example, measuring a company's past and current carbon footprint does not give as much information about its future valuation as understanding its strategy for reducing its carbon intensity. And another big challenge for analysts are how to create the valuation figure or what techniques of valuation they should use while integrating different ESG factors. Equity investors here can adjust corporate valuation for ESG factors in a number of ways. Investors could vary the discount rate applied to future corporate cash flows, which raises the question of how much of discount rate should be applied to various kind of ESG risks. Alternatively, they could apply higher or lower multiples to valuation ratios such as price to earnings or book value, which might lead to double counting if ESG factors are already partially priced by the market. As a result of these difficulties, ESG analysts often takes the form of a qualitative input that is used alongside traditional quantitative model. Another key challenge which a lot of people are talking nowadays is about greenwashing. What is this greenwashing? Greenwashing is misleading information given by companies that they are really becoming sustainable or their operations are sustainable. It is very difficult for investors or for analysts to identify this greenwashing and how to take cover for them. For example, in European Union, they have introduced very recently a law or a kind of a regulation which is called European Union taxonomy. This taxonomy lists the number of activities which shall be called as a sustainable activities. Hence, if any company is claiming that they are sustainable company, they must prove that the activities they are performing fall under the list of European Union taxonomy list. The entire purpose of this taxonomy is to curb this greenwashing and to avoid this misleading information given by the companies that they are actually a sustainable company, but actually they are not practicing any kind of sustainability. So now we will quickly talk about some of the initiatives taken by United Nations and some of the regulatory bodies and international bodies to promote the ESG market. The first and foremost is the United Nations. The United Nations has played a critical role in the advancement of sustainability and specifically responsible investment in the last 30 years. One of the key initiatives of United Nations is United Nations Global Compact. The United Nations Global Compact was launched in 2000 as a collaboration between leading companies and the United Nations. It has since gained remarkable traction and now claims to be the largest corporate sustainability initiative in the world, with over 8,000 corporate signatories spanning the globe. Another important initiative of United Nations is United Nations Environment Programme Finance Initiative, or in short, UNEP-FI. UNEP-FI is a partnership between United Nations, that is UNEP, and the global financial sector to mobilize private sector finance for sustainable development. The third very important United Nations initiative is Principle for Responsible Investments. The Principle for Responsible Investment comprises a UN-supported international network of investors, signatories working together towards a common goal to understand the implications of ESG factors for investment and ownership decisions and ownership practices. The PRI provides support in 4 main areas. Number one, the PRI provides a broad range of tools and reports on the best practices, both for asset owners, asset managers, consultants like us, and data suppliers. It also hosts a collaborative engagement platform by which it leads engagements, and also it enables like-minded institutions to coordinate and take forward engagement with individual companies and sectors, especially those sectors which are considered as brown industries or emitting sectors. The third initiative or principle for responsible investment is that they also reviews, analyze, and responds to responsible investment related policies and consultations. They are actively involved with many regulators around the world to review the policies and to give recommendations on those policies. PRI also operate an academy called PRI Academy. They develop different training program and awareness programs, both for investors and also for consultants. Another very important initiative of United Nations is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Well, the Sustainable Development Goals agreed to by all UN members in 2015 in replacement of the UN Millennium Goals are the UN's blueprint to address key global challenges, which includes poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace and justice. These 17 goals, as you can see here in the screen, are interconnected and particularly aimed at governments. Despite the goals and subsequent targets are not being directly applicable to businesses and companies and investors, the SDGs have become a powerful framework now for investors and also for analysts. And many companies are already reporting against their impact on the SDGs, and they allocate capital to contribute to this goals achievement. In the next slide, we will see that how this SDG or the 17 goals are bifurcated into E, S, and G factor. So let's see. Look at this, that how this SDG or the Sustainable Development Goals are meeting the ES and G requirement. For example, good health and well-being is talking all about S. Gender equality is talking about S and G factor. When we come to the goal number 6, clean water and sanitation, it takes into consideration both E and S. Decent work and economic growth, which is the goal number 6, they talk about S and G factor. Industry, innovation and infrastructure, which is the goal number 9, it takes both E, S and G into consideration. Similarly, if we look at the other goals, for example, life below water, which is very much related to E aspect, life on land, very much related to E aspect, and partnership for the goals, peace, justice, they are all taking S and G into consideration. So now we can see that not only governments, companies are also moving towards ESG, and they are formulating their strategies, which is aligned with the 17 SDG goals of the United Nations. Now the question will come that we know what is ESG, we know what are the benefits and ESG integration can bring to us, and also what are the key challenges in integrating ESG. Now the next question will be what framework I should use as an analyst to integrate ESG into my decision-making process. There are several popular frameworks available in the market. I have bifurcated this framework into a general framework and also some of the framework which is exclusively related to climate-related disclosure. The first and foremost is the GRI, that is Global Reporting Initiative's GRI standard. This standard is used by many countries and many companies while they are reporting on ESG. Another popular framework is the framework of International Sustainability Standard Board. Already they have come up with 2 ESG related disclosure standards. Already they are in a discussion phase, and soon they will going to be the standard which investors or analysts can use. Another important framework is Sustainability Accounting Standard Boards. Their framework actually divide or the ESG reporting sector by sector, and they have an excellent materiality metrics which an analyst can use while reporting on ESG. Last but not the least, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. This is definitely a very popular framework now. Every listed companies who are required to report on ESG issues, they use this framework. So far as the climate related frameworks or climate related reporting standard, the most popular is the Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosure. Other than that, a new framework is coming up which is called Science-Based Target Initiative. The advantage is that they use both sensitivity and scenario analysis to identify what are the climate risks facing the company and what kind of mitigation measures can be taken. The third most popular climate related framework or standard is GHG protocol standards or greenhouse gas protocol. They assist investors or they assist analysts to report on both scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 of GHG emissions. Other than that, there are carbon disclosure project is there. I will talk about it a little bit, and also climate disclosure standard board. They have also their own framework for reporting on climate risk. So now we will quickly discuss some of the popular climate related disclosure frameworks. The principal among them is Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosure. This framework is created by Financial Stability Board. I will go to the framework. You can see that this framework is divided into 4 segments, namely governance strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. It has taken a kind of a top-down approach. The governance segment talks about the organization's governance around climate-related risks and opportunities. The strategy takes into account the actual and potential impacts of climate-related risks and opportunities on the organization's businesses, strategy, and financial planning. Risk management takes into consideration the processes used by the company to identify, assess, and manage climate-related risks. And the last segment of the metrics framework is metrics and targets. The metrics and targets used to assess and manage relevant climate-related risks and opportunities. Other than TCFD framework, there are other organizations which are coming up with climate-related solutions. Principal among them is CDP or the Carbon Disclosure Project. So CDP is a non-governmental organization that supports companies, financial institutions, and cities to disclose and manage their environmental impact. It runs a global environmental disclosure system in which nearly 10,000 companies, cities, states, and regions report on their risks and opportunities on climate change, water security, and deforestation. Another popular organization for climate-related risk assessment is the Climate-Related Standard Board. It is an international consortium of business and environmental NGOs with the mission to create the enabling conditions for material climate change and natural capital information, which is to be integrated into the mainstream reporting. Now we are coming to the last part of this session, and it is related to ESG bond markets. Now, ESG bond market is becoming mainstream, as I said before, as ESG is becoming mainstream. And there are certain popular ESG related bonds already in the market. Few of them are, for example, green bonds. This bond is also known as climate bonds or climate related bonds. And these bond instruments are mainly used for climate related projects, especially for sustainable projects which is related to environment. For example, renewable energy, electric car projects, so on and so forth. Another ESG bond which is becoming nowadays popular in the market is social bonds. Their main focus is to serve underserved people and to promote social programs and to fund different social programs and activities. Sustainability bond is also gaining popularity in the ESG investment markets. Other than this, there is another bond which is coming up in the ESG bond ecosystem, that is transition bonds. This bond is issued by Brown Industries. Brown Industries means emitting industries to raise finance so that they can use this finance to transition to a more greener economies. The key players in this transition bond markets are emitting industries, for example, oil and gas industries, mining industries, utilities, and heavy industries. Sustainability development gold-linked bonds are also becoming popular. These bonds are issued to raise funds to meet the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations. Another bond which also comes under ESG bond market is related to blue economy. Blue economy means ocean economy. These bonds are issued in order to fund those projects which take into consideration sustainable use of ocean and ocean related resources. So these are the key bonds which are normally you can see in the US ESG bond market. So that's all about today's discussion. Now, if you would like to ask any question, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thank you very much for being with me. Thank you. So any question, please? So maybe if there is no, we can discuss some of the issues as we have still some time. So if you have any issues, maybe we can discuss. Or if you would like to know a little bit more about sustainability market or sustainable investment, maybe we can talk. Anyone?
My question is, in up to which period this type of bonds or this type of regulations will come in India?
So we are closing the session. I think the session has closed little early. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discuss with you some of my thought process relating to ESG. Sure, Mr. Praveen Jha has raised a question that E plus S equal to G square, why it is. If the governance doesn't work properly, E and S cannot be implemented because it is the board of directors and senior management that they really take initiative to implement ESG framework. I work with several listed companies and I have seen there that the board of directors, they are taking really great interest to implement ESG program. Even they come up with their suggestions and with lot of questions how better they can implement ESG in their day-to-day operations and decision making. That is the reason I always say E plus S is equal to G square. Without proper and appropriate and strong governance, E and S factor will not work properly. Any other question? Well, thank you, Mr. Praveen, for asking this question. Of course, social audit is the S aspect of ESG. If you are a social auditor, you will be able to take into consideration the S issues of the ESG factor. We have a kind of a misleading notion that ESG is all about climate. This is not the case. A very big part of the S factors, like what kind of human resource relationship the company has, whether they have a proper people policy, all these things affect the entire ESG framework of a company. And as a social auditor, because you are already very well equipped, you can easily take a significant part of the S segment of the ESG process or the ESG program. So, of course, as a social auditor, you have a great opportunity to participate in any ESG process, not just ESG reporting, also in implementing ESG framework in the organization. As a CMS, there is a vast opportunity for them because ESG, I believe, is meant for CMS because CMS are in a better position to analyze that what are the factors I should take into consideration to become more sustainable and to become more resource efficient. So, of course, CMS can add great value in ESG reporting, not only, as I said, not only the reporting process, also in ESG implementation. I've seen many CMAs are really working hard and also they are in the industry helping companies to implement the ESG program in their organization. Of course, they are in a far better position. Thank you very much and good day, all of you. And I'm closing this session for now. Thank you.
I offer my sincere thanks to organizer for organizing this type of very knowledgeable session.